Hi, I'm Brian Crombie, and we're going to be talking on the Brian Crombie Show. We're going to be talking about politics, arts, business, and social issues on the Brian Crombie Show on Canada One TV. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Show on Canada One TV. Real pleasure of mine to introduce you to Dr. Georgette Zinaty, who is got to be one of the most educated individuals I've ever met. She's just amazing. And she's a diversity, inclusion, and leadership expert. She has, for the last bunch of years, worked for the University of Toronto Scarborough campus. And she's recently joined an organization called, is it Corporate Class? Corporate Class Inc., where she's a leadership expert. And she's recently done a major speech at DeGroote on empowerment. And I thought it would be really interesting to check in with her on what it is that leadership's all about. I got to tell you, just before we do that, I've got to give you some of this, background. So, she's got a doctorate in business from the Henley School of Business in Business Leadership, Diversity and Inclusion. She's got an MBA in Marketing and Strategic HR from the University of Liverpool. She was a Research Associate Masters of Science from the Henley School of Business. At Harvard University, she got educated in business management, marketing, and related support services, and that's all on top of everything else. Board member, Toronto Board of Trade, board member of Women YE, board member Doyen Capital, and then you launched something recently that's some women's organization called Whoosh or Weep or Woo. And what's Woo stand for?
Woo stands for Women Helping Empower Women. Women Helping Empower Women.
Yeah. Stands for Woo.
Woo, because we're excited about it.
So, why all this education?
Well, because I think education opens the door to many career opportunities, to changes that you want to do, and to making significant change. And I'm a lifelong learner, always have been, and I hope to continue to be. And I take everything that I learn and put it into practice and use that knowledge to hopefully help others. So it's very good.
So you've recently made a presentation on empowerment?
Yeah, I was the keynote speaker.
Fantastic,
at the
congratulations.
School. Thank
so
you.
Tell me, if we want to be empowered, what do we need to do?
Well, I was speaking to women, but of course this is equally relevant to men. So part of it is actually having confidence and knowing who you are and what you want to achieve in your life. And so that's really important. Mm-hmm. The other part of it is actually taking some risks and rethinking about, having a strategy for what you want to do and achieve. So I often hear people say, I really want to do this, but I don't know if I can, or I don't know how. And so I'm often saying, well, let's do a work back on that. What does that actually look like?
What do you mean a work back?
Well, where do you want to go? How are you going to get there? What is your network? And we often, you hear the saying that says, your network is your net worth. So what does your network look like? So a lot of people, their network is kind of people in the same positions as them.
Right.
But I often say, well, you need to kind of figure out who can help open doors. So that doesn't mean you just add me on and say, hey, can you get me a job? I don't know you yet. But let's work on developing a relationship and then figure out how you can cultivate those things. So that's important. The other part is you have to think about what's going to get you to that next career that you want to do. So, are you volunteering? Are you participating? Are you getting mentored? And how are you planning all these different pieces of your life to get you to where you want to go? Because it's not going to happen doing the same thing that you're currently doing.
Right. A lot of what you're talking about is working with other people. It's networking, it's mentorship. Is that important in life?
Well, I can tell you a statistic that I saw not that long ago said that 80% of the jobs that people get, they get through their network. So you can
80%, not through LinkedIn, not through.
Well, LinkedIn is great, but if you know someone who makes an introduction, there's a really good opportunity.
It's a lot better off.
It's a lot better off. So
80% of people get jobs from
referrals,
network,
from someone that they know that says something.
It's interesting. I read another statistic that 80% of people get their mates from people they know.
Well, so there you go.
So it's that recommendation, that blind date, that I want to introduce you to my sister or my friend or whatever.
Yeah, well, that endorsement and that sense of if somebody you trust is telling you this person's really good, Brian's amazing, you should give an opportunity, I think he'd be terrific, you're more likely to look at that candidate favorably because of that. So I think that's very important for people to think about. And so the networking piece is really important.
So how do you develop a network?
Well, part of it is being genuine and authentic. So, when you talk about leadership, good leaders are actually genuine, they're authentic, they're open-minded, they're inclusive. And so part of that is thinking about, well, who do I want in my network? What does that look like? Is it a reflection of me? And then it's being genuine. So part-time, I often tell especially young people, I say, if there's somebody that you see in my network that you want me to introduce you to, let me know. And what I can say is, if I sent you a message on LinkedIn and said, Brian, I know we don't know each other, I've seen your work, it's been fantastic, really love this particular podcast that you did, would you have 15 minutes of your time just to talk to me? I'm interested in this field. You're more likely to say yes than if I said, you have an hour. And through that 15 minutes, you might think, well, you're really engaging. She's actually pretty bright. If I said at the end of 15 minutes, can you give me more time? You're likely to say yes.
So what do you think, people don't reach out, or they ask for the hour rather than the 15 minutes?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of both. I think some of it is the fear of being rejected. And, I always tell people, so if someone says no, is that really the end of the world? Brush myself off, and back at it again. I mean, no is not the end of the world.
So number one, reach out to people.
Yes.
And but reach out in a small way, asking for 15 minutes.
Yeah. And then be thoughtful about it, and don't just ask. I mean, actually follow that person, do a little bit of homework on them, so that they know you're just as invested in them as you want them invested in you.
It's interesting, because I often get people that will message me on LinkedIn or Facebook or something like that, and they'll ask for a job.
Yes.
And I go like, I don't even know you.
Yes.
I haven't even seen your
I get that
resume,
too.
and you're asking for a job. Like, let's start at a first date first of all, and,
that's right.
let's get to know each other. Ask, offer, can I send you my resume?
Yeah.
Would be not a bad way to start.
Or
could I have a chat with you to get some advice?
That's
would be a good way to start. So I think that I used that comment about a first date, but that was inappropriate. But it's a good analogy. You don't go all the way on a first date. You try to get to know someone right away. Get to know someone first. And I think that too often people ask for too much in the very first communication. Now let's go back to your comment about leaders. What you were saying about leaders is that they are authentic and genuine, and what else did you say? Inclusive. Look at Donald Trump. And 74 million people in the United States voted for him to be the President of the United States. And there's lots of CEOs that are authoritarian, are not genuine, that put on a show. Do you really think that the words that you use to describe leadership are the appropriate words to describe leadership?
I think that's the future of leadership. It absolutely is. I mean, look, Donald Trump, as your example, got in. But I think the reasons he got in isn't because people thought he was a great leader, or what they construed or what they associated with leadership was business success. And they thought, oh, well, if he can run a successful business, he can run a successful country. Well, we saw that wasn't the case, at least certainly in my opinion. And we saw a lot of other things uncovered. But what I think he did was he uncovered a lot of other issues that the United States actually has, right, in terms of just giving people this opportunity to show. And I think if
so you don't think people want the strong, authoritarian, masculine cowboy type leader anymore?
I think that is past. The command and control is gone. And I'll tell you why. Because I think when you look at the largest demographic currently in the workforce, it's millennials. They have now, according to Pew Research, have surpassed every other generation that we've got in the workforce. And they tend to be much more inclusive. They want much more work-life balance. They believe in equity and diversity a lot more. And so that workforce, being the largest, does not want command and control, does not want, these are not the people voting for people that you just described. So I think that is the future of leadership. And,
okay, so if the future of leadership is authentic and genuine, how do you learn who you are authentically, and how do you become genuine?
So I think there's a couple of things that you said there. So what's interesting about what you just said is the assumption that you have to learn it, but actually it's what you are.
So you just be what you are.
You have to be what you are, and you're.
But I hear this. Be authentic. Be authentic. Yeah. I hear it in so many different comments, and therapists and suggestions and leadership people, and is it just be happy with who you are?
I think it's actually knowing who you are. It's not being just happy with who you are.
But how do you know who you are?
Well, part of that requires reflection. Part of that is figuring out what drives you, what motivates you every day, what kind of makes you wake up in the morning, what makes you have purpose. And so for me, I think I figured that out early on about kind of what I liked about myself, where I thought I needed more work, and that's always kind of traveled with me. And I recognize I'm a work in progress. We all are works in progress, actually. And so I think if coming across, and when people meet you, whether the camera's on or off, you're always the same, then you're genuine, then you're authentic, and this is who you are to the core. And your values, part of that is what are your actual values that drive you every single day? Values,
genuine, authentic. We're going to take a break and come back with Dr. Georgette Zinaty in just a minute and talk a little bit more about what it takes to be a great leader in today's environment. Stay with us.
Assalamu alaikum. We are in the month of Ramadan, and I'm looking forward to celebrating this blessed time with you. Over the years, I've personally seen the strength of unity that this month brings to the Canadian Muslim community. This is an opportunity to learn and to join you in this holy month of purification and celebration. Ramadan Mubarak.
ओंटारियो का कोविड-19 प्लान फैलाव को रोकने और जिंदगियां बचाने में मदद फराहम कर रहा है। जब तक हम सबको वैक्सीन नहीं लग जाती, मास्क पहनें, अपने हाथ धोएं और फासला रखें। हम अब तक इकट्ठे चलते रहे हैं और पूरे ओंटारियो में रोजाना हजारों लोग वैक्सीन लगवा रहे हैं। आपकी बारी जल्द आने वाली है। ओंटारियो के वैक्सीन प्लान के बारे में मजीद जानें। अदायगी-शुदा मिन जानिब हुकूमत ओंटारियो।
Your kid's life is already in motion, but if distracted or disengaged at school, each day takes her farther away from her goals. At Sylvan, we create a personalized plan for your child with our in-depth assessment. Our certified teachers use a technology-based approach, so your child not only catches up, but gets ahead of the game. And now you can also help your child push the edge. With Sylvan Edge, our exciting hands-on STEM courses bring science, technology, engineering, and math together in exciting new ways.
सिल्वन लर्निंग सेंटर, आपके बच्चों का कामयाब मुस्तकबिल ही है हमारी पहचान। हमसे रब्ता करें at 905-814-8177, Monday to Friday 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. and Saturday 10 a.m. to 2 p.m.
अल्लाह के दिए हुए माल में इन यतीमों और बेसहारा लोगों का हिस्सा है। आइए इस माह मुबारक में हमारे साथ मिलके गुर्बत के खात्मे की जंग में अमली तौर पर शामिल हो जाएं। आज ही कॉल कीजिए या हमारी वेबसाइट humanconcern.org पर अपने एहतियात जमा कराएं और अल्लाह के फजल करम से ये बाएतमाद इदारा पिछले 40 सालों से आपकी ज़कात, आपके एहतियात मुस्तहिकीन तक बरवक्त और बेहतरीन अंदाज से पहुंचा रहा है। अल्लाह से दुआ है कि ये अमल हमारे लिए बाइस निजात बन जाए।
Here's to the people, pioneers searching for better, ambitious fortune seekers in strange new places. They're the inspiration behind Zoom, the fast and secure money transfer app from PayPal.
Math might seem hard for others to learn and love, but at Math Project, our students are empowered by it. As an award-winning accelerated math program, Math Project empowers children with life skills such as critical thinking and problem solving. Many of our parents proudly report their children scoring perfect to near perfect marks. Math Project's vision is to promote out-of-the-box thinking and create problem solvers of tomorrow.
Hi, I'm Brian Crombie, and we're going to be talking on the Brian Crombie Show. We're going to be talking about politics, arts, business, and social issues on the Brian Crombie Show on Canada One TV. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Show on Canada One TV. Having an interesting conversation tonight with Dr. Georgette Zinaty, who is a leadership, diversity, inclusion, and leadership expert with an organization called the Corporate Class. She used to be with the University of Toronto. She's got an unbelievable pedigree of education with numerous different schools, including a DBA, Doctorate in Business Administration, in diversity and inclusion. And we're talking about being authentic and genuine. And you say you got to do the work to understand who you are and what you're all about and values. You know, some people have suggested things like journaling as ways to find out who you really are. Are there processes that you would recommend as ways of figuring that out?
Yeah, so I would say, you know, at Corporate Class, we do a lot of assessments. So there's a lot of tools and assessments that we use that actually help people identify their values a little bit more, kind of crystallize them for them, but also identify what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, and where they can develop capacity in themselves. So I think that's important. Journaling, you know, when I did a program for young women many years ago when I was at U of T, that was something that I encourage people to do. And also if you're thinking about where you are and where you want to be, like when you do a little bit of that and you go back, you think, oh yeah, I can see, this is where I was, this is where I am today. And you could see sort of what I call the arc of change in who you are. So I think both of those things are important. The other part is, I'm going to say, is having what I call a little mini board of advisors. So many of us have friends, but there's a difference between friends and people who you might know that are actually, you know, in different sectors that will maybe challenge you a little bit. And I'm not talking about people who tear you down. I'm talking about people who give you really good constructive feedback to make you better.
Do you have a board of advisors?
I do have a board of advisors.
Really?
I have them on Woo, and I have some other people that I use outside of Woo. And I'll tell you, like, I am open to, you know, criticism in the sense that it's hard, because I take it very personally. Like, when someone tells me something, it festers inside in the sense that I'm thinking, is there truth to that? Can I be better? Do I need to, you know, where is my growing edge today? And as one of my good friends who's a consultant with us at Corporate Class, Terry Williams, says, you know, in the military in the US, they say, you know, when people give you feedback, feedback is a gift.
Yep, it is.
And if I can take feedback and use it as a gift and think about how do I make myself better and stronger, then that's a good thing.
So I did my MBA at Harvard Business School, and 50% of the mark is participation. And one of the recommendations that they provide is to get an accountability buddy on the other side of the room. It's a sort of a half circle room that you're in. So I picked this friend of mine to be the accountability buddy we were each other's accountability buddy. It was probably one of the smartest things that I did.
Yeah.
And we met every day after class, and sometimes it was for 5 minutes, sometimes it was for lunch and for an hour, and talked through not necessarily the content, it was more the presentation and the presence within the class. But given that so much of the mark was participation, it was important to have someone that gave you that critique.
Yeah.
And it was incredibly helpful. And so that was my one experience of having, you know, the accountability buddy. And I've used that a couple of other times in my life, and I think it's really very, very helpful. So I agree with that.
Yeah, and the idea isn't for someone to tear you down. It's to really just actually help you be better, and you know that it's not being malicious.
Yeah.
And so then that's a good thing. And I think those are little things that people I don't think actually think about doing.
Okay, so you said vision, or know where you want to go. You said your network. You said authentic, genuine, and journaling is a way to find that out. Yeah. Values is another one. Any other suggestions? Oh, you had courage in there somewhere as well.
Well, yeah, and risk taking for sure.
Risk.
Yeah, taking risks and then having the confidence in yourself. And I think part of it is too, people don't realize that sometimes training is helpful. So, you know, where I am with Corporate Class, I see the difference in people when they take programming, especially if they go in with an open mindset to say, I know this is what I want to come out, and, you know, and they're really invested. So you talked about doing your degree at Harvard. Well, you were invested in doing that. You were loving it. Yes, I know. So then when you're invested and you like what you're doing, then you're gonna really engage, and then you're gonna come out with a lot of good learnings. But if you go in thinking, well, I just have to take this program because my work thinks I need it, it's not the same. Yeah. But actually investing in yourself is really important, which is why I continue to do it myself.
With your education?
With my education, with giving back to communities, with whatever it is that I can do.
What about vision? You talked about that right off the top.
Yeah.
Are there processes that you recommend to try to figure that out?
I have a great little quote around vision that I used when I was doing my MBA for my thesis dissertation, and I said, you know, the difference between vision and hallucination is implementation.
The difference between vision and hallucination is implementation.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you can have all the great ideas, you can have all of these things that you want to do, but if you're not going to get it implemented. So having a vision is important, but you've got to be able to implement it. And so part of leadership.
It's the strategy, it's the plan.
It's the strategy, it's the plan, it's the actioning, it's the progress, it's the change, it's that arc of change I keep talking about. So you can have vision, that's great, that's an idea, you've got a bunch of concepts, wonderful, bravo. How are we going to get them to happen? So we got to move beyond hallucination.
And so how do you do that?
Well, part of it is commitment. Part of it is developing a strategy. Part of it is having, like, how are you going to get there? Like what I talked about, like a work back schedule. And so, you know, when people coach you, people are going to say to you, well, okay, so this is great that you want to get to here. How are you going to do that? What are the things you're going to do that are going to be actionable to get you there? What might that look like? So do you tap into a network? Do you rethink the job that you currently have? Is it fulfilling you? If it's not, you don't just quit. Do you find something else? You know, and it's kind of getting people to rethink what it is that they know. And there are different opportunities. And, you know, when you talked about me being at this Empower conference, and one of the questions that came up from young people was, I'm graduating and I have no idea what to do next. And their vision was very much like, I have this degree in business and this is what my career path is going to look like. And I went, you know, your career path is like a highway. Like if you think of the 401, think about how many lanes. So just think of it as not one lane that you're in. You've got multiple lanes to play, and play them all and see where you land.
Right.
So.
Okay. You know, it's interesting you were in an Empower conference because I've had this conversation with people about encourage. I think empower and encourage are things that you do for other people, while power and courage is something you have for yourself. And so I think that when you're trying to empower someone or encourage them, you're trying to help others. And so I think that part of leadership is helping that other person create success and giving them courage or giving them power. Do you agree?
I do agree, and actually, when we talk about leadership, we talk about executive presence, and what that means is, you know, the way we define it is someone who can influence and who can actually, as you mentioned, empower and engage and actually get people to be motivated and to see that. So it isn't by forcing the command and control. It's actually seeing someone, the potential in someone else, and helping them rise. And so that's really important. So that's very much about empowerment. And if you think about the good leaders that we think of, like the excellent people that we think that person did a really great job, or the people that you worked with and worked for in the past, the people that you probably are most fond of were not the command and control types. They're the people that made you grow, that maybe challenged you. You went home every day thinking, I actually learned something, and they were likable. But they were likable because they actually were invested in you.
Yeah.
Right? So.
Well, you know, it's the line that you can't be a leader without followers.
That's right.
And so therefore the leaders that try to be leaders just by themselves don't have a lot of followers, but the leaders that empower and encourage and support and mentor, etc., end up having more followers.
And you know, everyone can be a leader. You don't have to be in a position of power to be a leader. So the assumption that someone is in a leadership position makes them a leader, you earn that, you know. Just a title doesn't give you leadership. And so I think it's also important for people to realize that even if you're on the front lines, like you're like an entry-level position in an organization, you could still be leader and show leadership, and that's totally okay. And it's really how you build your capacity as you're moving through an organization.
I think you're coming about vision, though, I'd like to make a comment on, because I think that you're right that you got to have the plan, you got to have the strategy, you got to have the implementation. But I think a lot of people dream or you know, just daydream about something, but they don't actually envision it and think about what is actually something they want to have as their ultimate in life. And one of the things that I've found really helpful with that, to make it real, is a vision board. And I've done it a couple of different times in my life, and I've gotten my kids to do it at different times, and I think it's really helpful. And what it is it's taking pictures of who you want to be and what you want to look like, whether it's, you know, going to a school or getting a job or flying a plane or hiking a Camino or whatever it is, and not just writing it down, not just thinking it, but actually, you know, making an illustration of it and then actually posting it on the wall.
Interesting.
Does that make any sense?
It does, but everyone, so one of the things I'll tell you pedagogically is everyone learns differently, and everyone processes information differently. So for me, the way I am is I have these lists, I have a sense of what I want, it kind of percolates up here. Most people don't realize it's percolating. And then I kind of just, by the time it's going into action, I've actually thought out most of it. But it's up here. But that's just me. But for you, a vision board may be the way you go, and that's very good, because for you, maybe you're a much more visual person and you prefer to kind of see it. And that's good too. So whatever tools people need, I think, are important, but the mapping it out is really critical. And, you know, as I say, like
mapping out the plan.
Mapping out the plan and thinking about the how will you do that? When will you do that? Holding yourself accountable to doing it.
Yeah. I'd want to go to New York, you'd want to go to New York, but you'd be the one that will remember to get gas.
And I'll probably, so if I was going to New York, I would have, are we driving, are we flying? The different flights, you know, is there directions? You know, do we have the hotel? Do I have all the bookings? So I'm the kind of person, if you travel with, not only do I have, like, where we're going, I have things tabbed. It's a little type A, but it's organized.
It's all detailed.
And there's always a plan B, just in case plan A doesn't work out.
If people want to check you out and follow you, corporate class or personally, how do they do that?
Yeah, so you can find us at www.corporateclassinc.com. That's our website. Woo Women is www.whewwomen.com. We've got a great event coming up.
Which stands for, again, women?
Women helping empower women.
Women helping empower women.
Yeah, and then you can just look me up, Dr. Georgette Zinaty. There's not too many of me. It's a pretty unique name, so you'll find me there.
Dr. Georgette Zinaty, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Well, that's our show for tonight about leadership. And I've also interviewed Dr. Zinaty about diversity and inclusion. Unbelievably interesting young lady that's got a lot of knowledge and a lot to give this world. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. That's our show for tonight. Good evening.
ओंटारियो का कोविड-19 प्लान फैलाव को रोकने और जिंदगियां बचाने में मदद फराहम कर रहा है। जब तक हम सबको वैक्सीन नहीं लग जाती, मास्क पहने, अपने हाथ धोएं और फासला रखें। हम अब तक इकट्ठे चलते रहे हैं और पूरे ओंटारियो में रोजाना हजारों लोग वैक्सीन लगवा रहे हैं। आपकी बारी जल्द आने वाली है। ओंटारियो के वैक्सीन प्लान के बारे में मजीद जानें। अदायगी शुदा मिन जानिब हुकूमत ओंटारियो।
Are you looking for